Hello, my name is Michael, and today I'm going to show you guys how to set up your camera. And today I have my audience is going to be my mother. She's going to be my audience and kind of supporting me, trying to set up this camera for you guys. And today I'm going to be explaining, obviously, what everything is. First thing first, when you buy a camera, it's going to come in two lenses. Obviously, I took off the small lens because I wasn't really using the small lens as much. But I have the long lens on, which I'm going to explain which each lens do. This shorter lens is typically around 14 millimeters to 35. They're really good for landscapes and for portraits also, but mostly just for landscapes. The longer lens is typically around 50, around more than that. I've seen some of them even bigger, like really, really huge. Those are for more like for sports and for nature like. But these are for more, obviously for nature and for portfolio and for all of that too, but more zoomed in pictures. So that's what it's gonna be used for. And so, if you guys see, there's a bunch of buttons and dials and whatnot. So I'm gonna explain. First thing first is obviously not gonna have the battery in. So this is where you're gonna find your battery and your SSD card, which is mostly gonna be around the control center because this is where it's controlled. And so mine is just a switch. So you can just switch it on like that. Some of them have a pulling mechanism and some of them have a pushback effect. Mine just has a little leverage, so I can just push out, push back in, and then I can just push it right back in. Same thing with the SD card. I can just push it in and it will just come right back out. But I'm just gonna push that right back in and close this. Up here is where you're gonna turn it on. So mine is just a switch. Mine just switches on. This is also going to be your shutter button to where you take your pictures, so you can just press it, or your focus. When you barely tap it, it focuses, which I'm going to show you right now, and you can kind of hear it. Let me see if it would. It's not going to do it, but it will make a little beeping sound if you do. This right here is going to be your mode dial. This is where all your modes are going to be. For example, program, aperture, shutter, manual, etc. The most you're going to be used in these mode dials is going to be program and manual. Program is just, it helps with the exposure, and manual, you control everything. Aperture just controls the depth of field, and which the other one just controls the motion blur. So if you go back here, you're going to see your center control, so where you can control your continuous shots, which is going to be right here for mine, and which has, for example, continuous shots that do 10 seconds, etc. So let's go back. Your ISO is going to be located right here, which you just click and it controls, for example, it controls how much light is getting into your camera. So if you have a very, very dark image, you want your ISO to be up, so it helps bring up that light into that image. But if you have a brighter image, you're gonna have the lower ISO because it's already bright outside. Same thing with aperture. It's for motion blur, so it also measures in f-stops, which I'm going to explain what those are, which is going to be in this dial I have right here. It's another dial, but it controls mostly my f-stops. So it's controlled by f-stops, for example, like f2, f5, f6, etc. The most f-stops you're going to be using is f5 and f8. Those are going to be the most commonly used and the most used and helpful for taking photos. So this is how also you control it. This button up here is going to be your display. So I have many, many different displays. For this one, for example, that shows my f-stops, my exposure by how much light that is going into my camera, and etc. But I mostly use this so I can see both for my viewfinder right here, which you can also see through, but I mostly use my LED screen. For this button up here, it just shows more of the settings, so you don't have to go in the menu, for example, and go through all the settings. It's just an easier way. For this button right here, it's going to pull out your flashlight. Most of them do have this mechanism, some of them don't, but mine does. For up here is going to be your microphone. I see for content creation is going to be for video and content creations, which you can also plug in for right here. You can also tether it with your laptop too to take pictures from your laptop, which is very, very good if you want to take landscape photos and you're not standing by your camera and you can look through your laptop, which is very good, what it's good for. And this is where you'll also charge it. To show you how to change the lenses, which is probably the most commonly used, is obviously you need your camera to be shut off. You do not want to do this with a camera that's on, but first you're gonna push this lens release button. Barely push it and then barely turn it. You don't want to push any more force into that. Barely do it. And make sure you have your other lens ready to go, because getting dust into your lens is a really big problem and it can affect how your pictures come out too. So by clicking this back in, it should click back in just like that. And to make sure that it's actually in there, you make sure just turn it on, and if you can see through the lens, you got it right. But yes, this is how you set up your camera. I really do hope you guys learned something new today. And yes, thank you guys very much.